gamers of the internet, and welcome to another episode of
80-bit Podsmash,
where gaming goes to grab a beer. We are your hosts,
Penguin and Termite,
and 80-bit Podsmash is a weekly video game podcast centered around smashing the ideas of culture, art, sometimes politics, together with video games and other things that we love.
Yeah. Today we are drinking, again, the same thing we had last week, which is
Flying Dog's Blood Orange Ale.
Yeah.
Yes.
I was like, I don't remember because I threw the bottle away and poured it into glasses.
That epic read on the label there.
It's the same thing. So
it's so
we
good
don't have
and
to go into
refreshing. Yeah.
In today's episode, we're going to be talking about open world games versus linear games and kind of comparing and contrasting the two. So that's what today's topic is about. But before we get into our topic, we like to have a couple of segments, and mostly we just like to catch up and talk, see how we're doing. So how's it going?
Did you hear about what Amazon did today?
Yes, I just read about it on my way home.
Isn't
and
that
I was
crazy?
a little bit disappointed because I like the 20%. I just like this flat 20% off.
So what happened was Amazon is switching from their 20% off promise when you pre-order a game to a $10 off flat discount. So when you pre-order a physical game...
No, it's a $10. It's a $10 credit.
Oh, Amazon credit. You're right.
Amazon
You're right.
credit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you don't get it cash or you don't get it off. You just get your Amazon account credited $10.
And it can go towards
anything Amazon
They
does.
said most things Amazon. I'm sure there are things that don't apply to. So
Really?
I'm assuming you could just...
like those third-party sellers maybe.
Yeah, I'm assuming you could just put it right towards the game when you go to pay for when you pay for the game.
That doesn't sound like it. It's like you pre-order it and you pay,
and then
full,
you pay
price,
full price, and then you
after
get
the game
$10.
ships, you'll
so
get
you
the
could
$10
do it for your
credit.
next game, maybe.
Right.
Yeah, interesting.
The only benefit I can see to this is because if it's a $60 game, your 20% off became $12. So you're losing $2. I order everything on Amazon. So the fact that this is an Amazon credit was almost like negligible to me because like whatever, I order coffee and paper towels and like stuff off Amazon all day long. But if the game is $40 or $30, do you still get that $10 credit?
Oh, I see
because
what
that's
you mean.
way more than 20%.
Yeah,
because you're going from $8 to $10 or $6 to $10. And so I wonder, like, if you're a person who pre-orders a lot of varying stuff, like the Mega Man X collection that just came out was $40. Some of the Switch games, like Captain Toad's
what happens if you...
Treasure
I guess
Tracker.
the question I have is what happens if you buy... Or what happens if you pre-order a game, get the credit, use the credit, and then cancel your pre-order? I'm assuming
you don't get the credit until after the game ships.
Oh, until after it ships.
Which is after
that
your
makes
card
sense.
is
After the
charged.
card is charged.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. I don't know. I have mixed feelings about it. I can see in cases in which you're talking about it, if you pre-order a lot, there's absolutely no reason why. I pre-order only games that I know I'm going to want to play. Like I have very few games that I actually pre-order. Smash is like one of them.
Yeah.
I meant to pre-order Spider-Man, but I did it too late, so now I can't.
Also, listeners, by the time you guys hear this, it will already have been past the deadline, but the deadline's August 28th. So if you get in there now and like pre-order everything you want over the next year and a half, you at least lock in a 20% discount for that title.
Yeah.
So it could drive you to pre-order a little bit more. I have Smash Bros, Kingdom Hearts 3. I don't have Red Dead, unfortunately, because it's sold out, but I have Spider-Man, so I'll get 20% off on some of those.
Yeah, it's not one of those things where I'm going to cancel my Prime membership as a result of it. It's annoying, but again, what I like about Amazon, as opposed to another subscription-based service that we've been talking about recently, is they told us well ahead of time that they're making the change, giving us the opportunity to adjust our buying habits and
I
stuff
like
like
it's
that.
like so they told us 8 days in advance before their deadline, and you're grandfathered in anytime any pre-order you do now. It doesn't matter when the game comes out. So there's games without release dates you could have pre-ordered right now, and you'll still get that 20% off because you pre-ordered it before the 28th. So that's awesome for Amazon for doing it properly.
Yeah, so that's nice because my Smash Bros. Copy now means that it's going to be $48.
Yeah.
So,
also, I lost my credit card today.
Uh-oh.
But it's 2018. I'm not worried anymore. I went into my app and just froze it, so no one can do anything with it, and I'll just order a new one.
Yep.
Like, how easy is that?
Yeah, I've lost my credit card a couple times and just... I mean, you can just call and cancel. Like, even if you don't have an app, you can call or go online and just say, all right, I'm gonna axe this and send them a new one. The only inconvenience is that you have to wait for a new one. So however long it takes to get you, some places it ships faster and sooner than others. So
I assume you can get one overnight. At least it is when it's stolen, or if your credit card number is stolen.
I mean, the biggest pain is I've lost my wallet before.
Ooh, that's horrible.
And I don't keep cash in my wallet, so that's not That's
just
not
getting
the
your
problem.
license alone.
Exactly.
replaced.
Getting your license and getting all your cards, like having none of your cards, then having to get them all replaced. That's the big. That's why it's always nice to keep a copy.
Yeah.
like a emergency credit card in the house somewhere, so you can be like, okay, if I lose my entire wallet, I've got a backup, at least to temporarily make purchases with, because I've lost my whole wallet before, and it's just the worst. Because it's not bad, it's not life like ending, but it's certainly like the biggest inconvenience in the world. I think it's more. I would rather lose my phone. I would rather lose my keys, I think, than lose my wallet. So.
Ooh, my key is $400.
Yeah, keys.
I've done that.
In hindsight, now I'm like, ooh, I don't know if replacing all of my keys, that's expensive.
Yeah. My car key is worth a PlayStation 4 Pro.
Wow.
Like,
there are so many things that as an adult I've spent money on that I'm like, that is like 3 Nintendo Switches right there.
You always compare it to the game
like,
console.
Whatever the console. Yeah, like, oh man, that's so many Nintendo Switches.
We had a single dinner in New York that was more money than a PlayStation 4 Pro. Yeah. One meal.
Whew.
Yeah.
Sorry, since I just said Nintendo Switches, it reminded me of my coworkers and I have been begging our boss to get a dock for our, like just like an shared office dock that because there's like 8 of us that have Switches.
Yeah,
like it's the number of people who have Switches and are getting Switches in my company is like growing. Yeah. So we were begging for a dock so that we can, especially when Smash comes out, we can all play Smash in the break room, and he wouldn't do it. So we ended up finding a $25 third party dock that's more like you just like plug it HDMI into it and whatnot, and it just like transfers the signal. Works great. I hooked it up today and it's awesome. So sweet. I don't remember exactly what it's called, but there is like essentially a Switch dock on Amazon for like $25.
Yeah, you should have saved that for your favorite things.
Oh, that would have been a good favorite thing.
It would have.
Yeah. Oh well.
I'm
not sure if I have another favorite thing. We'll see when we get there. But hey, speaking of favorite things, do
DLZ.
No, you do favorite things first. You always do this.
I'm so out of it.
And now I just sang by myself the most deflated way possible.
You can edit this out if you want.
Maybe I will. Maybe I'll leave it.
Doing this podcast is our favorite thing. Doing this podcast is our favorite thing.
Wow, I went up an octave.
You really went up on that one.
I'm not even sure. That probably sounds really bad. Well, I think I'm a little tone deaf when I get that high. Oh well, it's cool.
Hopefully you're singing along with us and you didn't even notice.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no one notices.
No one even.
Anyways,
don't rewind it and listen to it again.
Favorite Things is a segment that we like to do where we catch you up on the thing that we're digging this week, the thing we're most excited about this week, our favorite thing. You got one because I need to think.
So my wife and I went to IKEA, which is usually a nightmare, but it was actually okay until the very end. There's a threshold of sanity that you can maintain through this store. It's a furniture store and it's huge and it usually takes forever. And a lot of couples have like debates about what they want in their house. My wife and I are very agreeable and kind of open-minded about a lot of things in our house. None of us are like super tight to a certain design or anything. So anyway, we get to this whole thing and we get to the kitchen like plates. It's the marketplace area where you can buy everything. And I saw these bowls, like cereal bowls, and I needed them. Like I was just over the moon about these cereal bowls. I was like, let's get 6 of them. Let's get a whole set. We'll toss or donate the ones we currently have. These guys are awesome. I want them. And that's my favorite thing.
Okay.
I got these new white deep bowls that are just, they hold 1 million pounds of cereal. I'm obsessed with cereal. I love it. It's like my favorite food in the world. So that's a double favorite things. So that's my favorite thing. It's this new IKEA white bowl. It's just a cereal bowl. It's amazing. It has changed my breakfast.
Nice.
We bought 2 because my wife got a set of colored dishes. And I was like, sure, you get the set, but I'm getting these 2 bowls. Yeah. And I need 2 bowls because I eat cereal every day. And I'm like, okay, 2 days a week. We're probably going to run the dishwasher every 2 days. So I'll always have a bowl ready to go. And so like, it's my breakfast. I love breakfast.
Nice.
I love life.
Sweet.
I love my job.
Yeah.
I love video games.
Yeah.
Podcasting's pretty cool too.
Cool. I have my favorite thing. You don't need to stall for me.
Okay. You weren't talking.
You didn't seem like you were done. All right. So my favorite thing is there's a new show on Netflix, and I only saw like the first few episodes of it, but it's great. It's called Disenchantment, and it's made by Matt Groening, who did who did The Simpsons. It's the same style as Simpsons and Futurama, but it's like a fantasy.
From that show that's really popular right now with the Pickle Rick.
Oh, Rick and Morty.
Yeah, isn't it writers from them on that?
Probably, maybe. I don't think Dan Harmon specifically is in it, or Justin Roiland, who are the guys who primarily produce Rick and Morty.
Anyway,
but it doesn't matter. Like, it's Matt Groening. He's Simpsons like classic.
Futurama
is even better in my opinion. And
American
this
Dad?
is like No,
No.
that's Family Guy. That's
Okay.
Seth MacFarlane. It's great. It's funny. It's like set in a medieval like fantasy world. So the main character is a princess. There's one character that's an elf, another one that's a demon. So it's really so far it's really fun. I mean, I've only seen like a couple episodes, but I was like cracking up at certain points.
Yeah.
Like it's definitely that like Simpsons kind of like subtle humor where it's
Good,
not like
yeah.
it's not like outrageous like jokes. It's just kind of like little subtle things. You're like, and there was a Hearthstone reference in there at one point.
wow.
I was like, yeah. So
Yeah, I'm curious to see how like Matt Groening's comedy would have evolved,
right,
Because
right.
The Simpsons started how long? Like 70 seasons ago
30
or something.
years, something like that.
Yeah, and it's like comedy,
Uh-huh.
modern culture, what's happening in the world, stuff like current events. They're all different.
Yeah.
So like, hitting those shows like Futurama touched on like the iPod and
Yeah.
like diet trends
Uh-huh.
and other things. So like, yeah, I'd be curious to see. So it's a Netflix original.
Yep. Mm-hmm. So Netflix produced it and had him
wow.
write and animate it. And
Netflix is taking over, man.
Yeah, man. It's one of the things. Sorry, as a side note, since you brought up Futurama, I would say that I would argue that Futurama is one of the most, if not, it's probably tied with Rick and Morty, but it is probably the most intelligently written show
More than South Park.
on television, more than South Park, and I would
Wow.
even say more than Arrested Development. And it's only because of one thing. It's because every time a like equation is shown in the background of Futurama, not only is that equation an actual legitimate like scientific equation, but usually the name of the equation or what the equation represents is somehow relevant to the plot at hand.
Oh wow!
So if they're doing time travel and in the background there's a little board with like an equation, math equation in the background, it's some equation that has to do with time travel. Or if there's like Planck's equation, it's like, and then characters are planking, like things like that.
That's
like,
awesome.
It's so smart. Like, and that's what I mean. It's so intelligent. Is like it's a level of intelligence that's beyond me, like my understanding. I know that's really conceited to kind of say like, wow, it's too smart for me, but like I mean that trying to be humble, like. There are people who are...
You're a common listener, watcher, and these equations are above that level of
way above. Like they put them in there and they don't care if you get them.
Right.
Only like, they expect that only the smartest of the smart people will even take the time to like recognize them and then put together all the like... It's just crazy. It's so smart. So like I'm not as big of a Simpsons fan as I think I want to be. I am a huge Futurama fan, and this show's great. So, Disenchantment, check it out, Netflix. It's great.
Yeah,
so,
I wanted to. I saw the previews. It looks awesome.
All right, so that is favorite things for the day. Let's move on to our next segment, which is DLC.
Downloadable content.
Yeah, downloadable content is a segment where we do just kind of like a mini discussion, something where we're just kind of creating it not off the fly, but it's just sort of a, it's, again, piece of content generated by us, where hopefully it's a conversation that usually around video games that maybe you've never had before. So, today we're going to, for our DLC, I was thinking about this because I was thinking about like, okay, I think it was actually inspired by our last episode where we talked a lot about Japanese culture. Mm-hmm. And I was thinking about like, oh yeah, like I wonder if there are cultures out there today that have just like they don't make video games. And I wonder what like a video game from, for example, like India would look like. Now, I don't know if there are Indian game developers, but that got me thinking even more like for DLC, I think it would be fun to talk about like if a different culture from like history. So I'm talking about like Roman Empire or the Renaissance Europe, like a different culture from history. If they had the technology to make video games, would you like to see, like, what cultures would you like to see have had developed video games? I know the tensing there is weird, but like, if any culture could have the technology to make video games, which culture would you like to see games from?
I have two.
Okay.
One of them is like Egyptian pharaohs.
Yeah.
Because they're extremely oppressive and like they look at themselves as gods.
Yeah.
And so, like, chartering to make a video game, everything they built back in the day, architecturally, was like a shrine to themselves.
Yeah.
So they would make video games as shrines to themselves.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
And I wonder what that would look like. Or like,
well, you see, I thought of ancient Egypt too, but then I realized that like their language system is basically like.
Oh, that too.
Their
Hieroglyphs
language,
and pictures?
the hieroglyphs are basically like emotes, though.
Right. Yeah.
And I was thinking like. I bet you all their games would be like essentially, you know, the ancient Egyptian equivalent of like Candy Crush Saga, where it'd just be like little like Tetris and stuff like that. Yeah, exactly. Little puzzle games.
Where every single picture
They'd probably be
the
super intricate, but
Didn't they like worship the sun too and they had the Egyptian gods?
Oh, they had
right?
worship all of their gods were associated with some thing in nature. So the river, the sun, the cattle, all that. So there was gods of livestock, gods of death, all that good stuff.
Yeah, like today's games have things like the themes of postmodernism and acceptance of all things, and all of the stuff that's kind of...
Polytheism would be a huge, like, underlying philosophy behind the games.
Right.
Yeah, I can see that. Okay, so that was one. You said you had two?
The other one would be either, and this is two options that fit this category, some sort of revolution happening in a culture. So like the French Revolution or the American Revolution, where the main idea across the culture is we are going to stand up for ourselves.
Overthrow.
And so like what kind of propaganda or things would be weaved into those games, because everything was anti-government or anti-oppression from up high. So it's kind of the opposite of the Egyptian perspective. Is like, now what would the common people make a game at that point where they want to revolutionize? So they want to unite under a common like idea that enrages or like fires people up. I don't know the word I'm looking for, but like builds up inside of, like, to continue their like build momentum for the revolution. So that would be interesting to see how that gets woven into games.
Okay, I can see that. I've got two as well. So one is actually similar to actually mine are kind of similar to yours as well, but a little bit different in both cases. So one, I would go the other side of the lake with your ancient culture, and I'd go with the ancient Incans.
Ooh.
And the reason is because they were so into, like, they were not Incans, I'm sorry, Aztecs. Both, and that whole Central America ancient
they are
empires, because they were so into astronomy. They were super like knowledgeable about like the heavens, like space, way beyond their time, and like their calendar and everything is so advanced. I bet you they would make some really cool, like, if they had the technology, they would have made some really cool like space games, or like games that had to do with like, that would be like educational, like teaching about like, but like really coolly and impressively, because their art style and everything was crazy too. Just impressively teaching about space, like astronomy, what they learned about astronomy. So I bet their games would be like really educational while also being visually incredible as well. Yeah. So I would love to see that, and then I would love to see like Renaissance Europe. So
that would be like
specifically the English Renaissance,
massively art games,
right? Yeah. Yeah, I was specifically English Renaissance because I think that, you know, again, I have a soft spot for Shakespeare, of course, and I just think that the English writers of the 1600s were some of the most incredible storytellers of all time. So yes, I would love me some
super deep stories, ridiculously good painted art,
just great writing, just incredibly artistic. So
like Journey.
Yeah, basically, like every game would be Journey.
Yeah,
like Journey would be like, oh, this is crap. This is like third-party developer crap.
Yeah.
Every game would be just incredibly artistic. So, yep. So if I could go back in time and give them video game technology, I'd give it to those two cultures.
Yeah. All right,
cool. All right, that's DLC for the day. Let us know. Yeah, let us know what if if you're listening to this and you're like, oh, you should think about this ancient culture, and if they made video games, it would look like this. We definitely want to hear that, because I love this DLC idea. So hit us up. You can find us at
80bitpodsmash.com is our landing website. You can find us links to Google Play and iTunes, as well as Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, all on that website. On any social media platform, you can find us with the ampersand at 80bitpodsmash. No hyphens, no uppercases or whatever, just 80bitpodsmash. Again, we're on Reddit. We have a subreddit. And we're on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. You can follow us all there. We post things almost daily on Twitter. We post things regularly on Instagram, different pictures and things that we're interested in or we care about or want to bounce ideas off you guys. That's how you can give us feedback, so write to us. Our email address is 80bitpodsmash@gmail.com. You can send us an email, topic requests. We'd love to have a segment that's like reader mail of just like questions you guys want us to answer. That'd be cool. So please talk to us, give us feedback, rate us on iTunes, give us a star rating and a review. That'd be awesome. That's how we can get more exposure. And the final bit of homework for you guys is to share us. Retweet our tweets and share us on Facebook to your friends to allow us to get more exposure so that we can provide more content for you.
Yeah. Exciting stuff. So yeah, great. That is, those are all of our segments. So let's move on and go into our main topic today. As I mentioned in the intro, we are talking today about linear games versus open world games.
It's a topic I love.
Yeah, and it's actually a topic that's pretty it's been talked about in the gaming industry just in this past year. One big example, we're going to footnote off to an article. This isn't actually the source article, but it was just a really good summary of the entire interaction. But EA are the super villain of the gaming industry right now. Yeah. EA decided to dismantle Visceral Games, who were in the middle of producing a story game for the Star Wars universe. It
was supposedly linear, single player.
And people were really excited about it. So they dismantled Visceral and canceled the development of that game, and the fans were
so
sad and angry, and they were asking EA why, and EA's official response, I don't know if it was a specific person in EA or if it was like, their PR team or whatever, but their response was, people don't care about linear games anymore.
Right.
They want open world experiences. Corey Ball, I always want to say Balrog, like the demons from Lord of the Rings, but
I was thinking of the fighter.
Barlog. Yeah, it's Corey Barlog, and he was the lead developer of God of War, the newest God of War.
Yeah,
and he's been with Santa Monica, I'm assuming, for a long time, and making God of War games for a long time. So, so God of War is known to be a very linear gameplay, and he said, I absolutely disagree. I think that there's still a place for linear games, that linear games can still sell and do well. And he was vindicated. Like, this was right before God of War came out. Like, not right before, it was a few months before God of War came out. And I would say that he's very vindicated in his ideas, because God of War is probably one of the best-selling games of this year. And probably going to be Game of the Year. Or it's definitely a heavy contender for Game of the Year.
It is, yeah.
So, yeah. So I think that, we wanted to, ever since that discussion, we've had this topic on our list of a discussion that we want to have, because I think that it's an interesting thing to talk about, because there is a rise of open world games. We're seeing more and more games that kind of follow that format, but I still would agree that there is still not only a space for linear games, but they're still going strong. So let's talk about the differences, compare and contrast them, and
we'll talk about our favorites and how they're going to evolve too.
Yep, cool. So let's just start off, and with good old, the way we like to start at the very beginning, a very good place to start, and talk about what is a linear game.
To me, a linear game is something that has a tighter narrative and a stronger focus on main story content. It usually restricts the player's ability to explore, to focus the character's trajectory through a certain level, or the level design, or through progression in the game that allows a very strong, in-your-face story to be told. That is a linear game. It's a line.
Yeah,
you are going in these directions.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's very many games, especially early on. In fact, almost all games early on follow this format, because if you look at like a platforming game, like, you can only design the game to go like left, right, up, down. Like, if you only have 2 dimensions to go with, then it's kind of hard to design some fully open, realized environment. In contrast, open world games, or what you see now, they're usually, there's a bigger sandbox. I think we used that word sandbox before, so it's a bigger area where you can kind of go any direction you want, and you can do things in whatever order you want. There still may be linear experiences within the game, but they're usually designed to kind of let you approach those tasks or goals in whatever order you choose and however you choose. Or you could spend the entire game just goofing off and doing whatever you want. Thing. Yeah, doing your own thing. Yeah. So that's kind of the big difference. Those are the two extremes. A linear game is a game where you kind of have to go
you're directed
one direction the entire time. Yeah.
Open world is you're left to your own devices.
You're left to your own devices. Yeah. Cool. So which do you prefer?
I like linear games.
Okay.
I do.
Yeah.
There's a great place for open world games, and there's a lot of really good ones out there if it's done correctly. But to me, I think linear games are more polished, and the story is more direct. I guess it comes from the design perspective that you don't have to worry about all of the possibilities a player can take. Right. You're eliminating all of the possibilities a player can take, and you're forcing the player to go through this world.
Yeah.
And so, like, to me, maybe it's my adult life where I can only play video games 12 hours a month, and I don't have time for the exploration that open world kind of entails or lets you do. So I just like the tight, concise story and fun experience of a linear game.
Yeah, I'm gonna cheat and just say that I like both. Like, I don't have a preference. I like good games. So, and it's hard for me. I've had experiences with open world games where I'm like, I hate this. I've had experiences with linear games where I'm like, this is boring.
Yeah.
I think now is a time where I can sort of mention my one of the points that I want to make is, a lot of these games are on a spectrum, but I do think that there's very few truly open world games. And what I mean by that is a game where it's 100% like open. I would say that games like The Witcher, games like Breath of the Wild, games like World of Warcraft, I would argue that they are a bunch of linear experiences that you can kind of approach in whatever direction you want. Like, there's nothing truly... The only game that really comes to mind that I'm like, this is a true open world experience, you can do whatever you want in it, is Minecraft.
Yeah.
Yeah, because
that's probably the farthest extreme you can get.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I would say. I would say that is if there's it's a 10 out of 10 in in open worldness because there's no it comes at a cost though. There's no narrative. There's no exciting epic moments. The fun of Minecraft is kind of creating things and going and mining a bunch of stuff and then making a castle out of it. You know what I mean? So that's what Minecraft's appeal is. But even a lot of these games that are heralded as some of the greatest open world games of our time, they're really just linear experiences. I can't do whatever I want. I can't just assassinate the king in The Witcher. I have to go through a story quest, and there's even though I might have choices along the way, it really is just like even Breath of the Wild, I have to go do these certain tasks and I can do them in whatever order, but like it's not like I'm, and in some regards there's some creativity I can have, and Breath of the Wild's more along that spectrum, towards open world, but still like if I replay the game, I'm still going to essentially be doing the same shrines. It's not like there's new shrines every time I play it, or there's not a new thing to do. Right. So yeah, I think that to find a truly open world game, there's actually very few out there, and many of the experiences, World of Warcraft too, is like, yeah, there's lots of things to do, but every single one of those things is essentially scripted for you to do.
It's a quest.
Yeah, it's
with
a
goals
quest
in mind. You go in this direction.
Exactly.
Even
or
though
even
you're
the raids.
in a world.
The raids. So yeah, you are immersed in a world, and at the same time, you're doing a bunch of single linear experiences.
It's almost like open world is just a wrapper around the linear stuff inside.
Right. And I guess one of the bigger, contrasting features of open world games is that, or quote unquote open world games, is the ability to kind of do them in whatever order. And there's just the sheer amount of, like The Witcher, for example. Yes, it's scripted in the sense that there's a bunch of things there are a bunch of things to discover, which is fun. That's another kind of defining feature of open world games. But it's the same. The wyvern is in the same place for me as it is for you. It's not like it's randomized or anything exciting like that. And I guess what sets the open worldness of The Witcher apart from like a linear game is that you can kind of choose to do it or not do it, or you can
side quests. You look at
exactly
the map,
the idea of side
everywhere.
quests, even if they're scripted side quests, it's still like I can choose to ignore them. I don't have to do it. Whereas a linear game tends to be like you have to do this thing right now.
And you take like Skyrim with its like crafting stuff. You could spend infinite amount of time just collecting materials and crafting gear and like decking your character out, all the different types of builds. You can customize anything you want. So like if you want to be a battle mage with a bow, you can go build your own bow, build your robes, build your staves with all of the crafting and everything you want to assemble, and then go out and practice those things on enemies and grind to level those abilities and skills up, and then tackle your quests. So like that whole aspect of character development, specifically in Skyrim, is open world. And then Fallout 4, for example, you can build your own base. So you still same deal. You collect materials to allow you to craft,
which
building materials.
Playing through Fallout 4 for the first time, I thought I was going to completely ignore my base and not care about it.
That's what I did.
I have been so into it.
Seriously?
I've spent so much time being like, oh, I want to put this house together and put all these beds in it. You know what I mean? Like,
really?
I didn't think I would be into it at all, but I was like, wee! I love my base.
That's hilarious. Yeah. And Fallout 4 was actually the first open world game. No, actually The Witcher was, but I was really surprised to actually like Fallout 4 because I hated Fallout 3.
And I hated Skyrim.
Yeah, I hate Skyrim too. I still do. I can't ever get into it. But Fallout 4 was a surprise for me because it's so close to Skyrim and the open worldness that I'm usually not attracted to.
Yeah.
It's funny that you got attracted to the base building.
Right.
Because the fact that I even played through that game
was
is a testament to
a miracle in itself.
That's how good that game is.
Yeah.
But so that's what we prefer.
Yeah. Breath of the Wild really opened me up to open world games more than, I guess. I mean, MMOs were my open world flavor.
Right, that was like the first.
But let's move on and talk about pros and cons. Let's start with linear games. What do you think are the pros of linear games? What do you think are the cons of linear games?
As I mentioned earlier, linear games allow the developers to really polish what they want to show the player.
Yeah.
Because it's so directed and dictated. And so like games like Uncharted, you have flawless like encounters with enemies mixed with platforming, mixed with the level falling apart, and you're fighting enemies at the same time, with good storytelling tied together with cutscenes. And that's just one example. Lots of linear games do this. Halo, like Gears of War. So even first-person shooters, third-person shooters, platformers, they benefit from this whole linear thing because you can actually, like BioShock, that's amazing when it comes to storytelling. And we talk about a lot of these games a lot on this podcast. You can tell which ones are our favorites. Most of my favorite games of all time are linear experiences because of that polish, because of that storytelling and character development. You know what the player is going to see next, and as a developer, you know as a writer what to write, the characters to say, and when to say it. You can do so much more with it. It's almost like a movie. It's like really controlled. Yeah, and I like that because I'm a controlled person. I'm a lawful good person.
He just found out what D&D alignments are and is super excited that he's lawful good. Yeah. For the record, I'm chaotic neutral according to the quiz I took, which I'm okay with. I'm clearly chaotic.
So you must like open world games more.
Well, I wanted to know, what do you think there are any cons to linear games?
Oh, it just restricts your ability to experience the world. So if you are looking at this environment or this planet, like I can use Halo again as an example. If you want to know more about the Covenant or know more about the Flood, like you only get what the game's got for you, and you can't run off the beaten path and go check that out because it's a fake backdrop that looks pretty, and that's it.
I would also say that replayability can be affected. With linear games, because once you've experienced it, they really have to go to great lengths to make you want to keep playing it. So like that's where like things like New Game Plus and achievements really kind of came about.
What is this thing you speak of?
I'm sorry. Trophies, whatever, systems like that get you to do arbitrary things like shoot 50 people with a shotgun, or you know what I mean, like because they want you to keep putting hours into the game, because they know that once you've beaten the game, once you've completed the linear single player experience, it can be hard to want to do it again. Now, granted, I really enjoy revisiting a lot of linear games. Like I'm super excited to replay God of War. I'm super excited to replay Horizon Zero Dawn.
You're gonna play the God of War New Game Plus?
I probably will do New Game Plus. Is it out?
Yeah, it came out today.
Sweet. Yeah, so when I get it back, I've got a friend borrowing it right now. Take your time, Ryan.
It sounds so fun.
Like I really want to replay God of War. I really want to replay Horizon Zero Dawn around Christmas time, because that's when I first played it. So I'll have like the nostalgia factor with it. So I like revisiting them though after having space, as opposed to open world games. You can really like, even when you beat the main story quest, you're like, I still have a ton of content that I can do. That I would say that replayability would be the biggest con for me. I also think that sometimes it depends on the linear game. It depends on the game. But sometimes, especially when they're not, I think that when you say that, yes, they can have a lot of polish. When they're not polished, though, it really shines. I mean, they can just, like, some of the worst games are linear games, though. The same could be said for open world games, too. So
I'd say most, and I guess if we can talk about pros and cons of open world games, we already do that. It's weird when you do pros and cons of two conflicting genres,
you end up talking about it.
You know, talk about it twice. But just to talk about the jank, like Bethesda's actually known for jank in its open world stuff. Fallout 3 and Skyrim, Oblivion, like they're so open. There's so many possibilities. It's impossible to capture all the bugs.
Right.
And so you're gonna break the game, and it's actually a cultural thing to go in and break it. And a lot of people can come up with mods and stuff to polish it up more, but just the fact that open world games are generally buggy, and there's very little a developer can do to like capture everything. That said, Breath of the Wild and Horizon Zero Dawn are both
incredibly polished.
2017 open world games, incredibly polished. And Nintendo actually came out and talked about their unique development testing system, where they would shut down development for 2 weeks and have like everyone test nonstop in every aspect of the world. I don't know how Guerrilla Games did their testing with Horizon Zero Dawn, but they nailed it. Like, it's awesome.
Yeah. I was just looking at as a side note, there was something on Reddit today. I saw someone had just a screen capture of a maneuver they pulled off in Horizon Zero Dawn, where they had put one anchor on the tripcaster down, and then like they ran, and there was like one of those big, I forgot, they're saber-tooth
the
robots
big ones,
chasing,
the really big
hulking ones, not the T-Rex ones, but like the saber-tooth ones. Like tigers.
Yeah.
And it's like running through these trees at her. And like the character, like he has a character jump, and then it slows down time and shoots the other anchor of the tripcaster right where the thing lands, and it dies. And it was really cool. I'm just oh my gosh, that game's so cinematic. Just like watching people play it is entertaining.
And that's a pro for open
Complete
world.
side note, yeah.
Is you can tell your own story how you want with an open
and
world.
you can have these experiences, the way you want them to. I would say the biggest con of open world games is they can be so overwhelming.
Yeah, they're huge.
That's why I do, and again, like, there's kind of a trade-off because like I like open world games like Horizon Zero Dawn because they've scaled back some of the overwhelming elements of open world games.
Yeah.
But you then have to argue, does that take away does that move it closer to linear games on the spectrum of linear games? Exactly, yeah. So like Fallout's overwhelming sometimes, the amount of stuff that I can pick up. I'm like, should I pick this up? Do I need it? Like, is this gonna? And they have the weight like system. Like, if you have too much stuff, then you get weighed down and you have to like go dump it. So it's like, so I come across an area. I'm like, do I need to pick up these things? And it's like, whereas I've been trained in games to pick up everything I possibly can.
You go through every room meticulously, and every corner, every height, depth, floor, ceiling, shelf, and you pick up every single item.
It comes down, and it comes down to
it takes so long.
It does, and it comes down to the amount of research you want to do. A lot of cases, like, do I want to take the time to figure out if it's necessary to pick up every clipboard or every pencil lying around in Fallout, or in Skyrim's case, like every chamber pot, in every place. So that is I would say a big con for open world games. But I mean, I like open world games a lot. I'm becoming like, I do like the feeling of being in a world. I do like especially now that open world games are getting better at making side quests more than just go kill 10 boars for me. You know what I mean?
Yeah, they're trying to add more story to it.
There's more like, like Witcher. The Witcher was great, even though The Witcher was overwhelming in its own right. Like, I did feel like many of the quests felt rooted in some kind of story. Like, there was a reason why. I wasn't just like, go kill that werewolf. It was like, first you have to investigate and find out who is the werewolf, which was intriguing, and then you have to find out that, oh yeah, the werewolves, like, it was a person, and his wife like was killed by his sister or whatever, and then you have to you choose to kill the sister or protect the sister.
Didn't the werewolf get his werewolfness from like a witch that he sought after under a tree? I
don't remember. I think you are mixing up quests, but because there were like 3 witches in a tree. That was crazy. That was part of the main story, and those were nuts.
Okay, the 3 witches are part of the main story.
Yeah.
But it seemed like a side quest, like you said. It's not just go kill this werewolf over here. It's like you said, you want to figure out who he is, why he's a werewolf, and then you end up getting sympathy for the guy because he chose to be a werewolf for this reason, and you're like, but he's evil. He doesn't control it anymore. He's lost it. It's insane. Like, I love those kinds of side quests. And Horizon Zero Dawn does that with nations and like packs of people. And it's like relationships between folks. And you go and investigate these side quests. Aren't just go kill 10 things. Right. You just said that.
Yeah.
But like, go learn the culture of these people and why this leader did this and like what he's motivated by and why he killed these people, and you should feel sympathy. And
and it's nice to see more open world elements being introduced to more linear games too. So you're starting to see a lot of, again, I really like that idea of a spectrum, because you're starting to see more, sort of
middle
shades
ground?
of gray, way more middle ground. Like the newest God of War is way more open world than the previous entries.
Right.
All the other previous God of War games, you had to go one single direction.
They were very linear
games. Now with the new God of War, there's this whole open area that not only like it opens up the game, you can go do a bunch of side stuff and explore, but then like it gets, as the game progresses, it gets more and more open. Like more parts of this area open up even further, and then there's all the different like realms you can go to.
Yeah.
Like, I loved the open world elements of God of War, and similar to The Witcher, similar to Horizon Zero Dawn, everything felt like there was a reason to do it. Like, whether it was the collectibles and like all those little treasure hunts you do, or whether it was like, do the like the rifts, like find the rifts and find the Valkyries and all that stuff. Like, that felt like there was a lot of lore. And they really sell that by having little, like, the Mimiron's head. And he's with you the entire time.
Oh, he's awesome.
Mimiron's the World of Warcraft. Yeah, Mimir. Mimir is the actual Norse character.
I didn't look anything up in advance, so all of this was completely new. I didn't have any spoilers. I played it, like, 2 days after it was released, so it's still fresh, and I had no clue what was going to happen. And if you haven't played it yet, and this is a spoiler for you, I'm sorry.
Yeah, sorry.
But you end up like with a head, a living, breathing head, dangling
being
from your
kept
waist.
alive by magic. Yeah,
Yep. Yeah, he's alive, and he'll talk to you about lore as you play.
Yep,
everything,
telling you all the stories and stuff.
Yeah, and it's really cool how they wove in like the game knows if you're just going off the beaten path. So like when you get in a boat and you start paddling, he's going to tell you a certain like role.
Yeah, and then when you get onto the shore, he's like, "We'll pick this up another time."
Yeah,
like, it's so good.
Yeah, and
it's so good.
He does pick it up as soon as you get back to a boat. So it's programmed well enough. I've never heard the same story twice. So I don't know if anybody else did, and I platinumed the game, so I went out of my way to get everything, and I still never heard the same story twice. So I don't know what it would take to get every line of dialogue.
I really hope Mimir is in the next one.
I know, me too.
Like, please.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In some way, shape, or form.
Right. Yeah. Bring him back.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's great. Cool. Let's move on to our next question. What do you think, other than kind of the things we've already talked about? It's kind of interesting. We've already answered this question in a lot of ways, I would say. But
we did.
What do you think the rise of open world games, the sort of emergence of all these very good, solid open world games, what do you think that means for linear games? Like, what impact, if any, is that having on linear games?
First, I want to talk about the actual rise of open worldness.
Okay. Yep.
And what this actually means. So, like, in the early days of gaming, open world was essentially limited to RPGs. Like, the only open world Nintendo NES games were Final Fantasies, Japanese RPGs, Faxanadu, which is not a Japanese RPG. Well, I guess it was made by Nintendo. Anyway, like, those are the only worlds you could explore and run around in.
Mario had open world elements. Mario 64. Oh, you're talking about earlier.
This is early.
Okay,
yeah, I haven't got there yet.
Cool.
Way to spoil my walk through memory lane here. No. So, yeah, the early days open world was limited, very limited. Like you said, platformers, shooters were all side-scrolling. You have two dimensions. It wasn't until we had 3D that you could really flesh out the idea of what exploring is.
Yeah.
And Mario 64 turned everything on its head.
Yeah.
Go anywhere you want to go. Do anything you want to do. You can go into a world and there's 8 stars, but you can get them in any order. If you had a player's guide that told you where they all were, you could get them out of order.
Yeah.
I mean, there was always a clue to which one you picked, but you could still go any way you wanted.
Yeah.
So that was like bringing adventure platformers to the forefront as far as like open world collectathons, followed by Rareware and like Banjo-Kazooie and Donkey Kong 64 and all those games. On the PlayStation side, you started to see like Spyro and those things happen. So open worldness was kind of taken over or emerged as a genre kind of in that early 64-bit era. And then for the PlayStation 2, one single title revolutionized open world sandbox games, and that was Grand Theft Auto 3.
Yup.
And I remember renting that game over and over and over again and never playing the story. In fact, the story was almost annoying. I didn't want to do the story.
Yeah. One of my favorite experiences in any game was like one of my favorite game memories. It was not Grand Theft Auto 3, but its successor, Grand Theft Auto Vice City.
Yeah.
One of my favorite experiences, again, similarly, I never played the story. So I'm assuming at some point in the story you go into this airport and get a plane and get to fly.
I don't know.
Exactly.
Sure.
I don't know. Because I skipped all of that and tried my darndest to break into the airport. And so I was like, me and my friends, we eventually did it. We eventually found a way to like launch a car, whatever, like in a hill and get past the fence. And then we like hijacked a plane. And I was like the most elated I've ever been. I'm like, I'm flying a plane.
Yes.
It was so good. So
and you took the plane. It wasn't part of a story.
Nope.
It wasn't a quest. You just did it.
Nope.
Right?
Yep.
That's awesome.
Yep.
So that was kind of like it's
when the term
catalyst.
Sandbox came into the lexicon.
Like it really set off what an open world could possibly do.
Yep.
So now fast forward from the PlayStation 2 generation to now, today. So the PlayStation 4, Xbox One, Nintendo Switch, the current generation of games, we saw more franchises branch into open world. They changed, they pivoted what their previous entries did and totally went a different direction. So Final Fantasy 15, because 13 and 12 and 10. 12 was a little open world, but 10 and 13 were super linear Final Fantasy games.
Yeah.
And they went straight open world, Western style, at least for most of Final Fantasy 15. We saw Breath of the Wild break entirely
Zelda's
of all of...
completely,
Mass Effect Andromeda, because the Mass Effect 2 and 3 were very linear. So Horizon Zero Dawn, the developers made Killzone. Their Guerrilla Games had made Killzone, which is shooters, which are super linear. Almost on the full spectrum, 100% linear.
Right.
They changed gears completely to go after Horizon Zero Dawn, which was open world. The Batman Arkham City / Arkham Knight games, because Arkham Asylum was pretty linear.
Very linear.
You could explore the little areas, but you were still going through. Arkham Knight was almost entirely Gotham City.
Yeah, Arkham City too. Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
That's why I put City / Knight, because like it's still this gen.
Yep.
Metal Gear Solid 5.
Yeah.
Because all the Metal Gear Solids were super linear.
There's
you can go back and explore the older areas with Metal Gear Solid, but
there's a great meme I saw that had a picture of Solid Snake from I guess, Metal Gear Solid 4, and had a picture of Link from, I want to say, like, Skyward Sword.
Yeah.
Both characters just had their normal hairstyles. Then it showed a picture of Solid Snake from Phantom Pain and Link from Breath of the Wild, and highlighted the ponytail.
Yeah.
And
they did.
It said clearly it's a requirement for the jump to open world. Your character has to have a ponytail now.
That's hilarious. And Tomb Raider, we saw with Rise of the Tomb Raider being more open than the other reboot. These are the two rebooted games that I'm talking about here. So that was all just like current established franchises that switched.
And
to
all of those are on the spectrum and the varying degrees of open worldness, if you will. Yeah, some of them, like Tomb Raider, is way more, even Rise of the Tomb Raider is way more linear than Breath of the Wild or Horizon Zero Dawn. Same, and even within franchises, Arkham City and Arkham Knight are very different.
They are
in their levels of open worldness. So yeah,
and then new franchises that started brand new games: Watch Dogs 1 and 2, The Division, Mad Max, the Middle Earth games, Shadow of Mordor, or Shadow of War and Shadow of Mordor. Destiny 1 and 2, and then No Man's Sky. Like brand new games that are just flooding the market with open worldness. And not even, continuing franchises with Grand Theft Auto 5, Fallout 4, Witcher 3, Just Cause 3, Dragon Age Inquisitions, all the Assassin's Creed games coming out, all the Infamous games, Mafia 3, Far Cry 4, Far Cry Primal, Far Cry 5. Like, we are so inundated now with open world games.
It's the thing.
It is. Like, that's kind of fleshing out what is this rise of open world? Oh, well, that's it. That's the rise of open world games. So
it's interesting to see, because we have the whole spectrum there. We've got brand new games that are like, this is what it is. It's an open world game. We've got franchises that are making the jump that are like, okay, now this franchise is an open world. So now Zelda games going forward, like, are they going to be back to linear? Or are they going to be open world, like Breath of the Wild clones? Like, it'll be interesting to see if this trend, if it's just a fad, or if it's a new norm, or if it's somewhere in between. Like, if it's a mixture between, like, there's going to be some games that might jump back. There's going to be some games that might stay open world. Who knows? Yeah.
Yeah, and I didn't even go into games that are announced that aren't out yet. So like Spider-Man,
Biomutant,
Days Gone, Biomutant, Anthem.
Even Darksiders 3 is more.
Darksiders 3.
Yeah, it's going to be more open world.
Last of Us Part 2. What is that going to be? Maybe linear, maybe open world. We don't know yet. Ghost of Tsushima.
Yeah.
Don't know. But we do know the other 5 I just listed that are. So Anthem, Biomutant, and Days Gone, Spider-Man.
Oh, Days Gone. Yeah. I keep forgetting about that title.
It's coming out in February. So it's coming.
Cool. But so back to the main question though. What does it mean?
The question is, what does it mean for linear games?
Yeah.
Where are they at? And I think God of War is kind of a good
benchmark.
And what are they doing? They're opening them up, and they're fleshing out linear. They're not removing linear entirely, because there's still a very strong narrative, and I think God of War nails, it's polished. It tells an amazing story. It doesn't detract from the player. The fact that there's no cuts, like the whole game is just one camera, like the whole way through, even the fast traveling, is a great example of what other linear games could do. In storytelling and narrative and polish and gameplay and level design too, because you have to be able to determine what direction the player is going to go at any given time. And so with open world, you have this trouble with maybe they'll go that way, maybe he'll go this way. Like the classic Dan in Breath of the Wild running out of the cave, and instead of going down the clearly marked trail, we turn around and climb the wall because we can. But you, as a programmer or developer, you don't know which way the player's going to go. God of War does a really great way of limiting the world by allowing story beats to open the world more. So you don't get to go over there until you accomplish task A, and now that world's open. And so I think that's the good gray area middle ground. I think that nailed it. And
I think a lot of just games in general, I think, are now, I would say that the effect that linear games is having on open world is the same effect that open world games are having on linear. Like, they're both having an effect on each other, and we're seeing more experimentation, more shooting for the middle. Like, I think a lot more games are going for that middle ground of, we're not seeing a lot of purely open world experiences. We're not seeing a lot of purely linear experiences anymore. I think a lot of games are kind of shooting somewhere in between. Like, this is a 3 on the spectrum. This is a 4 on the spectrum. This is an 8 on the spectrum. You know what I mean? So I think that we're getting a lot more diverse games. I mean, there's a great example of a game, an indie game that kind of takes a lot of what Minecraft did well and applies it to a 2D side scroller. Is a game called Terraria. And it's essentially open world. You can go anywhere they let you go, but like the whole idea is like Minecraft, you're like building stuff and making stuff, and you create your own servers and stuff like that. So like there's experimentation on all ends. And I think that's the effect that I would say that open world started it. You know what I mean? Like started the trend. I think that if games like GTA and even as far back as Super Mario 64, like if they hadn't come out and done what they did and done that well, we wouldn't see the diversity that we have now. But I do think that like there's each is kind of having an effect on the other, because you still want in open world games, you still want a good strong narrative, you still want those epic exciting moments, and so you have to script them. Like you have to script them. So yeah.
And I wonder what's going to happen. I'd love to see more experimentation in the first-person shooter genre, because most first-person shooters are very linear. And I'd like to see them stretch their.
Cool. This will be a really quick question then, before we'll get to games going forward. But let's just really quickly answer the question: is there space for both?
Oh, definitely. Sales figures show how financially healthy both sides are.
Yeah, and even sales figures aside, just from personal experience, I'm like, there are times when I just want to put down the open world game and pick up a single player, like a linear experience.
Yeah, I bounce back and forth.
Exactly.
All the time.
All the time. Yeah. So for me these days, as a grown up, I guess, I'm just looking for a good game. You know what I mean? Like whether that's something that I watch the trailers for and I'm like, this looks sick. Like I'm excited for it. I'm getting pumped about it. Or if it's a game that, that people are like, you have to play this game. It's so good. Like, I just want a good game. So sometimes they're open world and they're awesome, like Fallout. Sometimes they're way more previous even just the two previous games I played, like, let's take actually all three of the last games I've played: World of Warcraft, Fallout 4, and Tomb Raider. Like huge, varying, completely like some parts on that spectrum. Yeah, like in all cases.
But you also just recently did Darksiders 1.
Yep,
and Hellblade.
Super,
Bioshock,
very linear. Yeah. So it's just like I just want a good experience. Yeah. So cool. Great. Then going forward, what do you want to see? What do you want to see from open world games? What do you want to see from linear games?
I like the precedent that The Witcher 3 started, and I'm extremely excited to see what they do with Cyberpunk 2077.
Yeah.
And that trend is the side quests not being dull, but fully fleshed out stories. I want to see what Destiny has influenced first-person shooters to do with Anthem.
Yep.
And I want to, because that's BioWare, that's a super story-centered studio.
Yeah.
And I want to see what they do. And both of those are cross-genre, like linear open-worldness. And so like I'm looking forward to that. I want to see what's going to happen. So going forward, I want to see more of what those games are doing.
Yeah. So I'll start with open world, and I'll say, I'll actually, as much as I really like how games are kind of shooting for the middle, and there's some great experiences that are coming out of it, I think I would like to see them push the boundaries of what's possible with open world. And what I mean by that is, I do really want a truly open world experience where I can make the adventure. I want my experience. I want an open world game where my experience not only is different because of the choices I make, but just completely different because of whatever. Because of the tools that are available to me, because of the technological possibilities. So whether that's, I don't know what form that takes necessarily. But I imagine if there was a game where essentially you're the bad guy, and you're given spells or abilities to corrupt things or whatever, and so your way of corrupting this world, and then they just have put you in a world, and let you basically make your own evil empire. You know what I mean? Like something like that, or even it doesn't necessarily have to be like that, but just like an adventure where there's like, yes, there's monsters, but maybe those monsters and their placement, maybe the world is randomized, and then there's no necessarily narrative, but there's a bunch of like exciting things that can happen. And then I essentially create my own. And I want to go to that cave. And as I go to that cave, then like a sort of like a cascading, there's like all these kind of cascading branching possibilities.
Yeah.
And then based on like, not even based on my choices, but based on my actions, including my failures. Like what if like, oh crap, I got crushed by a rock. So then this changes everything. So then when I come back to it, something has completely changed. So like something
including
like
your
that.
Ability to walk.
Yeah, whatever. Like maybe it's like I die, but like that rock has now already fallen. Like, I come back to it, and now that rock has blocked that path, so I can't take that path anymore. I can't go down that way. Yeah. So, like, I don't know. Things I would love to them to experiment with a truly open world.
That's
where,
so open it's hard to describe.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Because I do, like I said, I do think that I would say that even though I think that it makes for some great games and some great experiences, if you're really talking about a truly open world where everything I do matters, you can't do that if you're still tied to linear experiences within that open world. Don't get me wrong. I'm not knocking linear experiences. I think they're great. And that's what I would say would be what I want to see more of going forward from linear experiences. I just want to see them continue to improve upon telling good, solid narratives, because that's like a book. If you think about it, a book is a linear experience. A movie is a linear experience. Like the TV show, all of those things, 90% of the entertainment we consume
is linear.
It's just whatever the creator has decided to.
It's one of the unique things about video games as a medium
is it can be way more. It can be open. Yeah, it can be something. So I do want to, so I want from both experiences, I want both of what they're good at. Like, I want to see open world push the boundaries of what's possible in an open world. I want to see linear games continue to hone in on what linear games can do well, which is tell really good stories. So, yeah. So I just want to see them amplified. I want to see them.
Well, that's happening. Yeah. So you're good.
Yep. I know.
Yeah. And
it's
the
a good
middle
future.
ground is getting...
Yep. And the middle ground's getting more ecstatically awesome in the middle, too. Right. Yeah.
As God of War showed us.
Cool. Well, we are just under an hour, so why don't we end there?
All right.
So let us know what your thoughts are. Do you prefer open world games? Do you prefer linear games? And why? Tell us why you like one over the other. So you can communicate with us by hitting us up on all of our social media platforms. So you could send us a Twitter at 80-Bit Podsmash on Twitter. You could start a Reddit post at 80-Bit Podsmash on Reddit or /r.
Yeah,
80-Bit Podsmash. Yeah. And then you could send us a message on Facebook or post on our wall at 80-Bit Podsmash. You can send us an email at 80bitpodsmash, Gmail.
80bitpodsmash@gmail.com.
Yeah, you got it.
Yes.
You can also communicate with us on our landing page on our website, which is just 80bitpodsmash.com.
Yep. Every episode has a little comments link. You guys can use that too.
Yeah. So if there's a social media platform of your choice that we are not present on, let us know. And
we're on Spotify too.
Yeah. Yep. So you can listen to us, just stream us right from Spotify.
Yeah.
When you're, instead of hitting that workout playlist, you can listen to
80-Bit Podsmash.
We'll get you pumped.
Yeah,
we'll pump you up. Please. And again, as Termite said at the beginning of the episode, your homework is to share us. If you like what you listen to, share us. And if you share us, we'll get a notification, so you can even include your thoughts that way and say,
yes, you can.
I think open world games are the bomb diggity. And then when you share it, we'll be like. So cool. And then until next week, y'all, have a great